Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Now today we're going to be talking about privacy, specifically the concept of privacy on the web and privacy on, web applications that might be running on your phone. I Before we begin, I do have to apologize that I got a little busy last week and was not able to record a video. But this week, hopefully, I'll be able to record two, so probably one later this week. Now, going back to the topic of privacy, the reason why I want to talk about this is because it's been an ongoing topic over the years, specifically with things like Apple pushing very hard on user privacy and a lot of privacy breaches and things like that. And also just the general sentiment of especially the younger people today who do not seem to care about their privacy online. And I don't really blame them because we are growing up in an age where everything online is free and everybody is being tracked and advertised to, and all of these companies are collecting data on you, and so everybody just sort of accepts that as the norm. However, I want to sort of challenge that and ask people the question, should we accept that as the norm? And should that be something that we just deal with? Or should we continuously try to fight back against data collection and try to keep our privacy as best as we can, especially online and away from these big companies? Now, hopefully today's video will bring some examples and allow you to understand why data privacy is important. Hopefully some of these things will make you either, if you were before a little bit hesitant on data privacy or completely not caring about your data, hopefully after this video you will start to care a little bit more about your data. And also we will be covering some of the ways that you can protect yourself online and sort of still use some of the services that you use today. So I'm not asking people to go offline, go off the grid, and completely disconnect from the world, because that would be a very unrealistic request. So yeah, let's get started. First, let's talk about why privacy is a thing, and specifically what are websites doing that might not be respecting your privacy. And that answer is website tracking. So you probably know every single website out there, every single app out there is tracking you. And they're tracking you for a variety of reasons, and they keep things like, how long you're looking at a post, what posts you're liking, which websites do you visit, what things do you enjoy and interact with, and they sort of build a profile on you. And so some of the information that they collect are like IP addresses, how the user interacts with the website, they can actually track things like, your mouse movements or what you're clicking on. They can figure out which websites did you come from and which websites you're going to. And there's a few reasons why they would do this. Number one is sort of the more harmless reason, is that they want to know about their website performance and website analytics. So basically they want to know how their website's performing. Is it slow? Is it a good use? Is there anything that they need to fix upon? And also just like which pages do people visit the most. But I think the more pertinent to today's topic is advertising. And that is basically they're figuring out who you are as a person so that they can tell other people, specifically like advertisers or merchants, who want to, say, find someone who is exactly fits your user profile. Google or Facebook would then go up to them and say, hey, I know someone who might buy your product. Give us some money and we will show this person your ad. So that is what why people track you, and sort of your main reason why your privacy online is compromised is because people want to track you and give you ads about it. And basically, this is another website talking about data-driven advertising, and I kind of covered it before, but basically, the website will build a profile about you, things that you like, the places that you visit, what are you recently shopping for, or your recent queries, like on Google. And then they can sort of get a sense of what type of person you are and what you might need in this moment. And then people who sell things, who happen to sell something that they think you might be looking for, they can advertise to you. And that could be both a good thing, like you can get a product that you were interested in already and you'll be able to know about a company. And it can also be a bad thing where, scammers can use this data to target people. And also, once there is enough data about you, they can sort of psychologically manipulate you, but that's a whole different issue as well. So here's some examples of how people track you. One is through cookies, which is basically if you go to your browser, you can sort of see that there are 9 cookies on this website. They kind of remove the ability to browse the cookies directly here, but you could figure out which cookies your browser has, and a lot of times it's like Google ad services or Facebook ad services and things like that. And basically what that does is the cookies contain an identifier of who you are, and then the website will send that identifier and some data to Google, and then they can figure out who this person is, sort of like what kind of profile this person does, what searches they've done and what pages they've been on. So that's one way to track people. Another way to track people is by using browser fingerprint. And basically what that does is it gets a lot of like browser parameters, like what user agent you're using, things like what fonts you have, things like that. And basically they're able to create this fingerprint, a unique fingerprint to your browser specifically, and then they can be like 99% sure who you are just by figuring out what parameters your browser has. So that's another way to keep track of users. So the idea is you need to have a way to keep connect users to the data that they collect. So they can use cookies or they can use browser fingerprints. And now let's start with the reasons why I think you should be caring about privacy. And the first reason that I want to give is also probably the reason that people don't care about the most, and that is data is a part of you. And I don't think that you would be willing to give away other parts of you, such as your hand or your heart or your brain or any other part of your body for free. And that's the same thing that you should view data as, sort of the digital expansion of your body, because the data that you generate is inherently you. It is leaving your personality and the person that you are and things like that in that data. So that is part of you. And so that's, I think, the first reason why you should care about privacy. And so just to give you another look at this, is how much do you think that your data is worth? And because, as I said, it's a part of you, it's kind of like your body part. Some people value it at, everything from $2,800 to, $1,000. And so this is users evaluating their own data. Like, what do you think your data is worth? And I'm interested in knowing what you think your data is worth. But here's a survey that a lot of people say that they value their online privacy, or they value that their data is very valuable, but 72% are not willing to pay for their privacy. So 80% say that they value their privacy, but they aren't willing to pay for it. And I think there's a big disconnect between sort of what you value your data at and what you're willing to pay for. And you can probably think about that right now. You probably value your data at maybe $1,000, $2,000 a year. Whereas I'm pretty sure, even myself, I wouldn't want to pay a lot of money. In fact, I probably wouldn't pay the amount that I personally claim my data is worth. And, there's just a big disconnect there. And of course, the actual how much is user data worth question is hard to answer because it is hard to quantify how much your data exactly is worth. Because, for example, you may be not as much of a shopper online, then maybe your data is worth slightly less. But maybe that you can be advertised for other services or things like that, or your data could be used to predict your friends' interests. Then your data might be worth a little bit more. So I think this article sort of goes into some of the estimates of how much user data is worth. Some people say it's like $89 for an email address. Data generated from an adult would be worth about $35 a month from the revenue of digital advertising companies, and things like Microsoft buying LinkedIn for $26.2 billion. That estimates about $65 per user. So things like that. So there are ways to estimate this value, but there's no concrete value. But just know that your data is a part of you and it is worth something. So that's reason number one. Reason number two is the third-party doctrine, which you probably might have not heard of, but basically it's a legal doctrine in the US and probably around the world as well, which means that if you give information to services like banks or internet service providers or internet companies, you should not have any reasonable expectation of privacy for that information. What that means is the government and probably other associations as well can obtain that information from third parties without a legal warrant. And basically what this means is if you give your data away to other people, you're no longer, you probably didn't care about that in the first place, and then you no longer have the rights to it. So you won't be protected under warrant laws with and basically anybody can buy and sell it. It's no longer yours. So that's a second reason, and I think it's a pretty good reason for people to not want to give away too much. You should always not give away more than you're willing to give away, because other people can get it at any time. You have no reasonable expectation of privacy. Third reason is, sort of these interesting cases and a lot of these anecdotes of companies using data to really, really be able to target you. And I think there's this one story you probably have heard of is like Target was able to figure out that a person was pregnant before their parents even knew about it. And that is a very interesting story. Basically Target was able to figure out someone was pregnant, and they sent them ads regarding maternal care and things like that. And their dad found out about that and got kind of mad at Target because they were like, oh, why are you trying to suggest that my daughter is pregnant? And apparently the data just shows that it is. So that's one case. Another case is like Facebook knows you better than you know yourself. And basically these social media companies and these advertising companies have so much data on you that they now know your personal likes and your personality, your taste and things like that better than you probably know yourself, because they're able to infer. They have so much information about everybody. They can sort of put you into a similarity bin with other users that may be similar to you, and then they can figure out who you are and what you like. And here's a quick chart from this research paper. And basically, you can see the number of Facebook likes to the accuracy of how to figure out who your personality traits. And you can see that just under 10 likes, you can figure out their personality as good as a work colleague would know you. At about 60 likes, it's about your friends or your cohabitant, like your roommates, would know you. At like 90 likes, it's like your average accuracy for all the people that you know in your life. At just over like 120 likes, that's like your family knows you. And at around I think this 230 likes, it's as good as your spouse knows you as a person. So basically, you can see not a lot of likes, and you can already figure out someone's personality traits. So that's pretty cool and also kind of scary. So this is reason number 3. And another thing is, like, this is a very common point in privacy, is like the Facebook Cambridge Analytica data scandal. Basically, data was being collected without their consent by a company called Cambridge Analytica, and basically Facebook allowed this company to access user data from people that didn't even agree to it technically, because they were able to harvest data of not only the user who participated in the study, but they were also able to get data from their friends. And if you know about Facebook and your friends and things like that, you probably have like hundreds or thousands of friends. And so I think the number was like they contacted maybe 10 or hundreds of thousands of people, and then they all of a sudden were able to get, tens and hundreds of million of user profiles, because you're just so interconnected with your friends, especially on Facebook. So this is a thing that, if you give your data to Facebook, they might either accidentally or purposefully leak it to other third parties. So even if you do trust Facebook, that data can be given to third parties. And I think this is a very good example also of things like Tesla workers showing sensitive information recorded by customer cars. So this is slightly less because you're not giving explicitly giving permission to Tesla to use the camera, but also just know that these tech companies have access to this data. For example, Tesla with their cameras, or like Apple with their Siri recordings. And of course, a lot of times, these are used to improve the service. For example, Siri might not be able to understand what you're saying, and that data was sent to a human so humans can transcribe it. But then all of a sudden, your private information, you might have said something very private, is now being listened to by someone else. Same thing with Google. So just know that all of these companies are processing your data, and a lot of times if you give them a lot of data, other people will hear about it and will know about it. So that's another reason to keep yourself safe online. And if that's not scary enough, there's also things like data breaches. And what data breaches are is, companies' data gets leaked. So even if you do trust these websites, let's say you trust Yahoo, your data might be leaked because some hacker was able to gain access to their database. So all of a sudden, even though you trusted some company, a very big company, to hold your data responsibly, and you think they will use your data responsibly, all of a sudden it falls into the hands of someone that you don't know and you probably don't trust. So the idea is, don't give your information away to companies that you don't want other people to know, because they might get breached. And you can look yourself up on Have I Been Pwned and see if your email address is shown in different data breaches. And of course, also a very big example of a data breach is like the Shanghai police database leak, where even the government might be data breached. And so in this case, you really can't really do anything about it because the police is collecting data on people and, you know, the inmates and things like that. So you really can't do anything about this. But this is just to show you that, you know, the more data you give away to people, the more likely someone will get your data in the future. Even though you trust them fully, they will probably get hacked, and then your data is out there for everyone to download and use. And I guess the final thing that's kind of the darker side of why you should care about your privacy is surveillance state. You know, things like China working on their surveillance state. Everything is hooked up, you know, all the apps, everything you say, and like their cameras that are doing facial recognition and things like that. And obviously on one side people say, you know, it makes you safer and a safer community, but on the other side you're really trading off a lot about yourself, and you're really giving away your freedoms to move around. And of course the main concern is, in a perfect world, it's probably okay for, you know, a surveillance state, because you know that it's only going to be done for criminals and people who do break the law. But it is not a perfect world. And what that means is whoever comes to power is going to target those that they don't like. And so why don't we just not do the whole spying on everybody? Because just in case one day someone who doesn't like you, they could probably find out where you are and throw you in jail, or something even worse. And of course, not to say China has all the problems, because the United States does the exact same thing. There's this program called PRISM, and that was leaked. And basically, it showed that the United States worked with a lot of companies like Microsoft, Google, Facebook, YouTube, AOL, Skype, Apple. All these companies work with the US government, giving them backdoor access to your data. And of course, this was leaked by Edward Snowden. And so just to say, every single country does this. So the idea is just don't give your data away to these companies, because they will probably be given to governments. And even if you don't have anything to hide, you probably don't want that data to be accessible by everyone, because it might get leaked, it might get hacked, and someone who probably is bad might use that data for bad things. Now let's move on to the second section of this video. It is now about how you can protect your privacy online. And the first way is to use things that already are private, or make your life more private. And that's things like uBlock Origin, which blocks trackers, ads, and things like that. And this is just a Chrome or a Safari. I think there's a Safari, and there's definitely a Firefox extension. So you can just install this on your browser and use it right away, and it will not only block ads, but it will block trackers and things like that. So advertising trackers. You can also use like a privacy-based web browser, and the one that I use personally is Brave browser, and it's a Chromium-based browser, so it's basically like using Google Chrome, but it has inbuilt privacy things like the Brave Shields, which basically does similar things to uBlock Origin. So you either get the extension or get a privacy browser. On the subject of browsers, there's also the incognito mode, and incognito mode doesn't really give you pretty much any privacy, because it still acts as a browser. All that does is that when you close it completely, it will delete all the cookies from your session. So even if you're browsing on the web, just know that your internet service provider, other people can probably still find out what you're browsing. It's just your history is not saved and your cookies are cleared. So that's just to let you know. So you should probably still get a privacy browser or a cookie blocking extension. There are things like Telegram, which is an app that is end-to-end encrypted for your chats. And what that means is, from the moment your message leaves your phone to the moment that it gets onto the person that you're sending it to its phone, it is basically jarbled. The message is jarbled, and nobody can decrypt it except for the people inside the conversation. And that includes Telegram itself. And there are a lot of other services that also offer end-to-end encryption, and Telegram is one of the more popular ones, especially for chat applications. You can also use like a VPN, which probably a lot of YouTubers advertise, and I didn't really want to choose one to advertise because I'm not being sponsored. But VPN basically is just to hide your browsing information from your not just your internet service provider, but also hide your IP address from the websites that you're visiting. So basically, VPNs will route your website traffic through their servers, and in turn, the ISP like Comcast or AT&T won't know what you're browsing, which website you're going to, and the website doesn't know which IP address you really are from. There are also services like Proton, where they have, a privacy-focused mail client. I actually was on their beta before, and they just recently entered the VPN space as well. But Proton Mail is pretty good. I've seen a lot of journalists in where they really, really need privacy because they're hiding from government censorship. They use Proton Mail. You can use a privacy-based search engine like Brave Search, which I talked about before, which I really like. But if you don't really want to switch to Brave Search, because honestly, sometimes it doesn't give the best results because Google still has a lot more data and a lot more correct data, you can use something like Startpage, which is basically they paid for Google search data. So if you search it, it's the exact same. Basically the exact same ranking on Google as Startpage, but they don't ever record your search history or your data, as you can see, and they block a lot of price trackers or retargeting ads. And obviously they still have ads on their search engine, but all they do is basically match to your query instead of match to a user profile. So I do recommend Startpage a lot, and I was using it before I switched to Brave Search. It's basically Google search, but more private. And of course, you can also go all the way and buy the device that is made to be private, like Apple devices, and even Android devices have privacy protections built in that they're working on and things like that. So basically buy from companies that are interested in protecting your privacy from third parties. And finally, I'm going to talk about the last class of sort of software. It is basically run your own service at home. And of course, this is something that not everybody can do. And things like Home Assistant is basically running your own sort of Google Home locally at your home. So you're able to control all your smart home appliances locally at home instead of through the cloud, and that basically takes back control of those devices to yourself instead of giving away your light switch to some third-party company. So I think this is pretty good. There's also things like TrueNAS, which you can make your own storage server, kind of like Google Cloud. You can run things like Nextcloud on it, basically kind of like Google Drive and things like that. So basically you can run your own storage server. There's also, of course, in relation to AI and ML models, I always like to run the models locally on my computer because it's just being generated on my computer. So all of that data is local and nobody else knows, what I'm generating, and they can't sort of build a profile of who I am. And an example of this is like GPT-4All, which basically you can run your own ChatGPT like models on your own computer. So the main takeaway from this section is there is a trade-off between convenience and privacy, and you gotta choose that yourself. Sometimes it is I can't really suggest you exactly which services to use and what you should do, because for those who are willing to, protect their privacy, they will set up their own servers, they will set up their own services and things like that. But for people who don't really want to bother that much and don't really want to change how they use certain services, you can definitely still use the ones that you use today. You can use things like uBlock Origin, or you can switch to a more private search engine like Startpage. So this is really something that you need to decide for yourself, how much you value privacy over convenience. Okay, another second way to protect yourself is, let's say you don't want to change the apps or the services that you use, and that is block cookies. And that's kind of like what uBlock Origin does, but more general. We're going to talk about GDPR and CCPA. These two are privacy regulations that were passed after the Cambridge Analytica scandal, and basically that made things like these cookie browser pop-ups more prevalent, because they are, especially in the EU and California, required to get your consent for cookies. So by basically rejecting them to use cookies, that's one way to protect yourself from websites that do this sort of tracking. Of course, with Brave browser, they will just already block the cookies, but they also now just block these annoying pop-ups, because a lot of these websites would just block your path into the website, and they will sort of force you to press agree, because they will hide that don't track me option under many menus. So if you do see those pop-ups, make sure to read carefully and go through all the menus to find the one that's don't track me. There's also things like on iPhones to do things like ask app not to track. And basically what that does is it told apps to not use your phone ID, your advertising ID, and give third parties access to informations attached to that ID. And you might not think this feature is very useful because it's just one button, and but you should probably do it, because it is apparently very detrimental to advertisers. And you can see that this app tracking policy cost social media platforms nearly $10 billion last year. This is, well, not last year, in 2021. Just 1 year, they were able to cost social media platforms $10 billion. So clearly, asking apps not to track is effective. You can also ask, change, personalized ads on different services. You should turn these off if you can, because there's really no reason to get personalized ads. They're just getting your data and trying to incentivize you to buy things. So you can turn that off on Apple. You can turn that off on Google, Google.com. If you still want to use Google search over Startpage, you can turn off personalized ads. This doesn't stop them from tracking you. It just will stop suggesting things personal to you. You can also turn that off on Twitter, and probably most social media networks will allow you to turn off personalized ads. Now, they will hide these menus. You probably have to search online how to do that, because they don't want you to turn that off. But if you do turn it off, they will stop serving you ads with your data, but they will still collect data about you. Just make sure you know that. So you should, if you can, still switch to more privacy-based alternatives. Another thing on your phone that you can do is control access to information by apps on your phone. And this is both Apple and Google. And you can basically go to the app settings, go to the privacy section on iPhone, and also go to the permission section on Android. And basically you can tell apps, hey, you don't have permission to my camera, to my microphone, to my files. And I think you should probably give apps as little access to those sensors as you can. So apps can't just randomly listen to you without your consent. And you can always grant permission back whenever you need to use it. And when you're done with it, just turn it back off. It is a bit of a hassle, but at least the app won't be able to access those sensors or that data while you don't want it to. Finally, and this is the nuclear option, it is to delete data from services like Google and Facebook. For some services like Facebook, the only way to delete data is to delete your whole account. From some services like Google, you can actually go to My Activity to manage and delete your recent data. That includes search history, watch history on YouTube, things like that. And of course, if you don't want to lose all your data, because sometimes you want to go back and look at your history, you can always download your Google data first, keep it locally, and then delete it from Google servers. Now, just note that deleting data on these servers doesn't really mean your data is deleted. They might still do things with it. So the best policy is just keep as much information to yourself as possible. Don't overshare, because whatever you don't share, they won't know. Whatever you do share, they will know, and they can give to others. And a final thing that I want to talk about that relates back to AI is you can now disable chat history and training in ChatGPT. And the way you do that is you go to your ChatGPT interface, and then you can click on your username here, and you can click settings, and then you can turn off chat history and training. And what that does is they will no longer store your chat history. Again, this is a trade-off between convenience and privacy, so you won't have any of your chat history stored, but then you get your privacy, so they won't use what you type in to train their models. So yeah. In conclusion, I hope today's video gave you a view on why privacy is important, why your data privacy is necessary, and hopefully it helps shift some people's minds towards more caring about your data, more caring about your privacy. And hopefully today's video also helped you in finding services and ways to sort of limit people from collecting your data, or ways to delete your data from services that already collect your data and things like that. And I'm just hoping that you learned something new about privacy, because privacy is an important thing for everybody to care about. And hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below if you have any thoughts on privacy, and how much do you think your data is worth, and how much are you willing to pay for it? I think that's very interesting information for everybody to think about. So I hope this video is enjoyable. If you liked it, make sure to press the like button. And if you haven't subscribed already, subscribe, and I will be posting more videos on tech and other things in the future. Thank you for listening. I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.